This is me 20 years ago, playing my trusty Fender Telecaster. I love that twang, I love that tone, I love the whole Tele sensibility. And she looked good on the wall too, she fit in well with the others. The problem was, she was god-awful to play, but that tone, I loved that tone so much years later I would make a sound a lot alike. That's right, red. As it turns out, that special edition is just a sound a lot alike a Telecaster. But since I've got the tone, that shouldn't be a problem, right? What kind of idiot would chase a tone they already had? I mean, think of the investment, the time, the money. It'd just be crazy. But, you've met me, right? Still, since I don't like the feel of the full size, I might as well go with the minis. I even found one online and picked it out. But then I went on vacation, and I had an opportunity to play one, and found that it felt okay, but it really made a lot of racket. So I ended up with this little 30-inch Lyxpro. This one was the subject of episode 31, A Mighty Micro Among Minis. She sounds purty. Most of the time. And then it came to me in the middle of the night. It woke me out of a sound sleep. You might even say I had a television. Unlike most of the other builds, I actually had a plan for this one. I even ordered parts, but I knew they'd be trickling in over a period of days, if not weeks. So in preparation, I got my workbench in shape, and I got it into a place with the other guitars where I knew I could leave it in the same place for a while. That way I didn't have to keep trying to wrap it up at the end of every night. I have to admit I learned this from my friends that are car guys because they rarely finish a job in one day. Do you want to know why I work on guitars and not cars? It's because I can't afford cars. And nobody's going to die if I mess up a guitar. Anyway, cut the strings after loosening the tension, and then go ahead and start to pull all the parts off. I'm going to have to strip this one down completely. And that's when I discover the first little wonder of this little Lyxpro 30-inch beastie, and that's to take the pick guard off, you have to flip the thing over and take off the neck. Which is where I discover the second interesting thing to me about this little beastie, and that is the neck doesn't have a truss rod, so it uses a spacer made of wood, a shim, and if you lose that, well, you have to take it back apart again and make another one. So then I take off the bridge, the steel bridge, or whatever material it happens to be made of, and that's the thing that really contributes to the Telecaster sound. I usually mess up replacing bridges, so I'm keeping the original after I mod it a bit. And here's the culprit of where the sound comes from, the pickups. They're not bad pickups, but they don't have the sound that I want. So I'm going to drop in some replacements. So just cut a couple wires and move on. Now, for those of you who have not seen the broken headstock of the guitar that I tried to drill on without prep work, you'll know why I'm being so meticulous with the measurements. You'll also understand that I actually tried to buy direct replacements as opposed to going with different replacements and modding the neck. First thing I'm going to do, though, is pop one out, put in the new replacement, and that way I make sure that it fits directly. Then I'll go through all the trouble of taking all the rest of them out and swapping them out. It seems to fit, and I'm surprised at the fact that it seems to be a direct replacement. Even the screws that hold them in place are in the same spots. And that makes my life really easy because it means absolutely no drilling. Now, I'll admit, I feel goofy whenever I'm using a socket wrench to take these things out. A guitar is not exactly a high torque instrument, and if you find yourself forcing it, that probably means you're doing something wrong. Now, back to the bridge. This is the secret of the Telecaster sound, and I will be using this again after I change it. Now, at the end of the first day, it's just a matter of cleaning everything up, which, me being me, I decide to put everything in bags, label them, and then it's time for me to head outside, spend some time in the sun, leave a project undone. Yeah, this is new, but this is supposed to be a relaxing hobby. And that's what it looks like at the end of day one, bits and pieces on the bench. Do you remember how I mentioned that bridge from the day before? Well, now it's time to add some brass saddles to it. That's going to increase its telliness, its twang, its tone. I don't know how much of a difference it makes, but I want to give this guitar every chance to succeed. So I get out my trusty 2x gas station magnifiers, pop them over my regular glasses, and get to work. Now, I usually do these with a powered drill, but after the broken headstock incident, I pretty much try to do all of the attaching things with a hand tool as opposed to a power tool. It takes longer, but I get myself into a lot less trouble. Now you can see when I clean it up, it may not look that much different to you, but it's going to give a different sound. Now to the neck. This is where I probably spend the most bit of time. Whenever I get a new guitar or whenever I'm going through a mod like this or an overhaul, I clean every single fret with some steel wool to try to shine it up. That way I can not only check to see where there are dead spots, but it makes it look a little better too. Then I usually take a pencil and lubricate the nut with silicone, which is a fancy way of saying scratch the pencil inside the slots at the top of the neck. That helps the strings move easier. Then I wipe off all the debris and then take a sanding block to the side of the fretboard and the side of the frets. This smooths it out, and I wouldn't recommend doing this with a fine instrument. I also had some rough spots on the back of the neck that I cleaned up. Then I spray something we call fretboard conditioner on the neck and go ahead and wipe it down. That not only hydrates the fretboard, but it also can clean up the neck and make it look nice. And then, having done all of that, I can hold it up and say, ooh, shiny. So this day draws to a close, and without any more parts, there's nothing more to do. Day 3, and we're entering into the home stretch. While I'm waiting on parts, I figure I might as well go ahead and give this thing a good polish. Nice coat of Carnauba wax, and then buff it out with a rag. That really does protect it a little bit, but also kind of makes it shine. Also gets rid of some of the minor imperfections in the finish for a guitar this cheap. And finally, the new voice has arrived. Fender Tex-Mex pickups. I have to thank Sean at Scar My Guitar for this idea. Pickup, meet bridge. So, now it's just a matter of routing out the pick guard so that the front Telecaster pickup will fit. Sometimes on these import guitars, the American-made products don't exactly fit correctly, so you have to modify. That's easy enough to do once you get the hang of it. Then it's just simply a matter of soldering the wires together, coating them with the vinyl and heat shrinking it so it will keep some of the noise down to a minimum. And you have to do that for both the rear pickup and the front pickup, of course. I got these tweezers because I thought, hey, if I hold the wire with the tweezers, I'll quit burning my hand. You know, metal tweezers get hot next to a heat gun. It's the strangest thing. Now it's time to put the pick guard back on. You'll notice I'm using a hand tool. This is one of those times where the powered drill tends to strip the things out, and then you have to glue the hole, and it just becomes kind of a nightmare. Now I finally peel off the plastic cover of the pick guard. The shim kept falling out every time I flipped the body over, but a little bit of Elmer's holds it in place so I can get the neck on. And then I start working on the neck bolts. With the shim, I usually line it up by the rear bolts, but I always tighten the front bolts first. After I get the neck set, and I make sure it's in the pocket really good, it's time to go ahead and add a set of strings. Now when I'm restringing it, I'm switching to 10s this time. They won't bend as easy, and I'm a naturally born bender, I believe, but it should hold its tune a little bit longer. And that's kind of what I'm going for with this one, because I am going to work it pretty hard. And that's the finish. It doesn't look that much different, but it was never about the look. So I put it on the bench and I tune it up, and then I get the intonation set as well as you can anytime you share saddles between two strings. You kind of have to split the difference sometimes with the intonation. But the tone of it sounds so good, and the feel of it is just there. Quite frankly, I love the way it looks. Maybe I'll let you hear it sometime.